Hello and welcome back. This is video 6 in the Flow Certified Coach training series. We're going to be looking at tile 4 with the VSPT model that you see here on the left. And today we have with us again is Jeff Kissinger, and I'll let Jeff introduce himself on this slide.
Hello, I'm Jeff Kissinger. I'm a Flow certified trainer, and I've been working with Flow, Andrew, and Andrew's brother Ted, rest in peace,
Mhm.
since 2015. And I'm going
A
to
few
introduce
years.
to you today VSPT. Now, what you want to take away from this, there's the original VSPT, which um, was originally introduced, I believe, through West Point, but there was
Mhm.
Newt Gingrich, who was a former congressman and former Speaker of the House in the United States government. He wrote an article on VSPT in 1992, which led to what was called the Contract for America in 1994, the Republican Revolution. But the strategies and the information brought from it, the vision, strategy, projects, tactics, was outlined, I should say detailed, that helped bring that about. But Flow's use of VSPT deals with vision, strategy, people tactics, as opposed to vision, strategy, projects, tactics. But I will flip the projects and people back and forth as I'm talking about this particular slide. Next slide, please. Now we have our four box. We have the individual, the team, the organization, and the product. But VSPT exists in each box. Now, for the individual, an individual's vision and strategy and people and tactics. But the one thing I want to point out as we go forward, see where the line is between vision and strategy and people and tasks. That is there because there is a language barrier oftentimes between those who set vision and strategy and those who are the people that carry out the tasks or the projects in the tasks, and that language barrier has to be overcome. So you have people that speak the language of management as opposed to those who speak the language of leadership. There has to be a leadership language that is done, that is spoken between the two in order for it to make sense. Because there's people that work on the details of getting something done to produce or to help bring forth the vision that has been set, results of it. But if the language is not communicated well between the two, then it doesn't get recognized. And that's where the disconnect is. So that line represents the disconnect. The goal in this is to erase that line. So as an individual, I have my own VSPT. Now, there's a vision that I have for myself, and there's strategies that I use to carry out that vision. And um, the people and the tasks that I use to help me get there are the people that I have in my life and I do interact with to do that. Now, my personal vision is I want to have a life without regret. Someday, if I'm fortunate to live a long life and I'm laying on my deathbed thinking back, I want to make sure I don't have any regrets. The strategies that I use to do that are my um, I have to plan things out, yes, but there's also a level of chance that I know, and there's risk that's going to be there. So I try to take as many calculated risks as I can. If I live inside my little box, I'm going to have regrets. So I can't live inside my own little box. Yes, I'm talking about a four box thing. I'm not talking about that kind of box. I'm talking about the box of blocking everybody and everything out so I
Sure.
can live a life without conflict.
Right.
And that's not what it is. If I want to have a life without regret, I'm going to have conflict, and I just have to know how to deal with it. And that's where the strategies come in and the people that I put in my life and the tasks that I carry out. But if you have individuals that are part of a team, it's best for them to have a VSPT as an individual as they bring to the team, because the team has its own vision. The team has strategies to carry out that vision. And there's the people that are involved with that team, but also the people that support that team that are involved too, as well as the projects, and then the tasks you carry out to make that happen. And then there's the product vision. What is the vision of the product? What are the strategies that we use to carry out the vision of that product? Who are the people that are involved? The team and the other people that support that team and support that product and working together. Because the point of flow really is, how do you bring all these elements together in order to work together to be going in the right direction in order to get to where you need to go. And how does that affect the organization? The organization has a vision. And that's often where you see vision communicated is you have the leadership of an organization telling you, this is our vision. These are the strategies that we have. You are the people that are going to help carry this out. And the task could be what each individual does. The projects are going to be used to carry that out. Oftentimes, individual VSPT is affected and clouded and it needs to be maintained. Teams are divided because they don't have a common vision and strategy and people and tasks to work with it. Products that get developed, you could have products that have a clear vision, but you have the wrong people working on it. And so you don't get what you want. So the organization doesn't get what it needs from the people, the teams, and the products that they develop. What the four box here shows for me is that these all have to be in alignment. Vision has to have my personal vision in order to work with a team has to align with the team's vision. And the team's vision, along with my individual vision, has to align with that of the product's vision. And that has to align with the organization's vision in order to have alignment. And those strategies will connect all the way up from the individual to the organization and back down. The people and tasks, there's the language of leadership that the organization has where the vision and strategy, but there's also leadership within the people and the tasks that have to be communicated. And swapping in the P for VSPT for projects, those projects have to be connected. So VSPT, it's individual, it's team, it's product, and it's organization. And they vary, of course, from each of the boxes, but they have to have alignment. It's like it's very much like to me how electricity works. If there's a disconnect anywhere along the way, then it's going to be mitigated at best the quality of what it is you're making or what you're doing or what you're trying to build or what you're trying to lead as an organization. So these are the places where one can look to see where there are disconnects. Next slide, please. So to recap, the original vision, or sorry, VSPT of vision, strategy, projects, tactics, talked a little bit about where that came from and how flow uses it as vision, strategy, people, tasks. There has to be leadership to carry out these, to carry out VSPT, but there has to be a common language that communicates from each of those four boxes. Our own personal leadership, team leadership, product leadership, and organizational leadership. And it has to be able to, we have to be able to connect um, from the individual, from the team to the product to the organization and back down through all those things in order for it to work, in order for it to be effective. And wherever there's a disconnect there, you can use other flow tools such as the flow friction analysis to diagnose where the issues are and to be able to make um, corrections to it and to reconnect.
Mm. What's really interesting about this is I don't know that a lot of people, since we're older, a lot of people won't remember how it was in the 90s. That's almost 30 years ago. And the thing that I look at this is that what Newt hit on was something so radical because everybody in Washington, D.C. talked about vision and strategies and things like that. Nobody was looking at, well, what are the projects and street level tactics we have to use to get it done?
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what made it so powerful is that they applied for the first time ever project thinking to how to take over the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So that halfway through Bill Clinton's first term, suddenly that was what about 1994.
Or,
Yeah, suddenly that everything shifted. And
mm-hmm.
so I think it's really interesting the way that they did it. It was for that time, this was incredibly radical thinking.
Mhm.
And I find that fascinating that here today, 30 years later, this is one of those timeless tools or mindsets really that we have, that we can use it for dealing with the management level, doing the hard work. Here's the big pile of stuff we got to get done. And we can use it for leadership by just doing a slight tweak with people and tasks, because it really boils down, even projects boil down to people and tasks. And
Right.
so to lead and to manage, two different things, two different languages. And I think you did a really great job hitting on all of those in this teach back on VSPT. Really, really well
And
done.
there's one thing I'd like to add, and if maybe I'm more emphasizing it, which is really important,
Yeah.
is that vision and strategy oftentimes is just it's communicated and people are saying, yep, this is what we do, and they pat themselves on the back at the leadership level without really looking carefully and seeing how people connect to the thing that they made. Because is it an agreed to vision, or is it the vision they came up with and said,
No.
everybody fall in line and um make it happen? There was something Ted used to say that always comes back to me. It's like, um, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I know what it's supposed to mean. It said, the beatings will commence until, um,
Oh, yeah. We used
till
to use
everybody,
that often. The beatings will continue until morale improves.
exactly. But that's how oftentimes vision is set. You get a small group of people that say, this is what the vision is, and that's fine, but you have to find ways to get people to agree. And the way you get agreement, which brings alignment, which brings the energy that flow brings, is you have to connect the VSPT all the way down through the organization and all the way back up through the organization. Otherwise, it doesn't work, or it is severely mitigated to where it's weak.
Exactly.
And that's why this is really important, because the individual, the team, the product, the organization, and back down all the way through that box, there has to be a flow of energy, of electricity, of ambition, of enthusiasm, of creativity, of all those things, all flows through VSPT. And it has to, in order for it to work.
Yeah. And if that flow gets blocked or if it gets diluted, which
Mhm.
happens most often, is the executives are up here going, we were clear in our communications. And then what they get back, they're like, is that what we said?
Yes. Yeah. You could say this is our vision, but that's why I believe vision, because when we talk about vision in this course, is that the vision has to be something that is 5 to 7 words
Yep.
tops. It has to be poetic. It has to mean something. It has to give you some kind of feeling when you look at it, as
Yep.
opposed to some 50, 60, 70 word vision. That's not vision. That's vision combined with the goals and objectives and all kinds of, let's throw it all in there and put it on a pamphlet and post it everywhere in the organization. People are going to look at it and their eyes are going to glaze over and they're not going to care. But there is a vision people follow. It's their interpretation of the vision they see, or it's maybe a total opposite of what the vision that has been told.
Yep.
Because if you have people that oppose, then they create their own vision. We do follow a vision. Our own, like my personal VSPT is what it is. Even if I haven't feel like I've put it into words, I'm following something. It gives me vision. Vision being what I see it's going to look like when it's done. If I could go into the future and say, this is what it looks like, my vision is what brings me there. And that's where the organizational vision has to be. It has to be clear. It has to be repeatable. It has to be poetic. If you can sit
Yep.
everybody in the organization down with a piece of paper and a pencil and say, write down what the vision is without having to look up at anything on the walls, everybody should be writing the same vision
Yep. The
for it to
same
work
five to
better. And,
seven words. Yep.
and that's why it's important. And oftentimes organizations don't understand what the vision means. They know what they
Exactly.
want, but they feel like they got to say everything in order for people to get it. They don't realize that it has to be ambiguous. Okay. It has to be something, because you can tie things to that vision. That's where VSPT comes in, the projects, the tactics, the people that have to deliver those tasks. And those things are connected. And where you eliminate that wall
Yeah.
is how well you've communicated it, for one, but also the language that is being used from one side to the other. So there is no sides, there's just a flow, there's a connection.
Yeah. And what's beautiful about vision is that when you get that disconnect erased, or
Mhm.
start getting it to fade away. Vision and strategy are the tools that allow the leadership to have those really tough conversations with everybody in the
Right.
situations where you need to have those uncomfortable or really tough conversations. If you don't have the clear vision and strategies, it becomes really tough to have those conversations. And as Ted always said, it's all about the conversation.
Yeah. And the that conversation that occurs, if there is not an agreed to vision and
Yeah.
strategy, or one of the strategies saying, this is well defined. Okay, there is no confusion. This is well defined. This is what we agreed to.
Yeah.
And in order for us to deliver on this, here's where you align or you don't align. You could
Yeah.
be really creative and you could be looking at the vision, but you could be delivering the wrong thing
Yeah.
because somewhere along the line, you um, either your team's VSPT or your individual VSPT veered off and wasn't aligned.
Exactly. Beautiful. Well, thanks, Jeff. This was excellent. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to having you in the next video real soon. Thanks again.
Thank you, Andrew.